Hello everyone and welcome to Heather's Happy Stitches. I'm Heather. Today we are going to be continuing the diamond painting exactly where we left off last time. Just pull this back. Hopefully the audio is picking up this time. Da-da-da. Okay. So I have a new light on. I have a new light over here, not just the light underneath it, to try and help the camera focus a little better. We'll see if it works. So, while I'm doing this, I'm going to tell a story. I've been sitting at my desk for like, I don't know, like an hour. Well, not even an hour, like half hour. We're going to do E. E is 9:39. Debating whether I wanted to do like a story time while I'm doing my diamond painting, or if I wanted to do the ASMR stuff again. But if I run out of things to say before I'm done, want to be done diamond painting, I'll just do the ASMR. But anyway, so I was sitting here debating whether to do the story time. Less because I thought it wouldn't be interesting, and more the fact that the people that the story time would involve at some point had subscribed to my channel. And I don't know if they still are subscribers, if they still watch. And with both of the people involved in both of the different situations, I don't want to cause more trouble than they are already causing by me putting this stuff out there into the world. I don't know, because I'm kind of one of those people that if you're not involved in the situation at hand, it's none of your business. So like when they go off and tell their friends and whatnot, and their siblings that aren't directly involved with the situation, and then their siblings treat me like crap because they know about a situation, one side of a situation, because you have to understand, in every situation there is three sides: his side, your side, or their side, your side, and then the truth, right? So, but anyway, they're telling their siblings and getting them involved, and I'm like, and then they're treating me like crap. Because they know one side of the story, but they're not interested in my side of the story or the truth, because I have no idea what these people are telling their siblings, you know? All I know is that we got into it, and then the sibling comes over demanding to know what happened. And I'm like, none of your business, that's what happened, you know? Because you're not involved. She's a big girl. She doesn't need you to defend her. And I'm not gonna let you tag team me because you decided to tell your big brother that one side of a story. You know what I mean? No. That's not how this, well, I mean in her world, in, cuz to me that's childish. You know? You have to bring in a third party that's completely uninvolved to fight your battle because you know you're in the wrong. And you want to bring somebody in that will immediately and automatically take your side of the situation. And I'm sorry if I'm cussing. I will bleep the cuss words out if I do cuss, because I'm not really paying attention to what I'm saying or beyond the story. So anyway, they're coming over here treating me like crap, demanding to know what happened, and I'm like, none of your business. That's what happened because you're not involved in it. You don't you may have an opinion on it, but what your opinion is does not reflect anything on the situation. You want to come in and defend your little sister, that's fine. But what you say isn't going to change the situation at all. You know what I mean? And we're going to do B. B is 420. And because you think because you're a male and I'm a female and you were in the army and I wasn't, you think I'm going to back down from you because you think I'm scared of you? No. You want to treat me like crap? That's fine. You know? But you have to remember that just because you treat me like crap doesn't mean I have to treat you like crap. Have you ever heard the words kill them with kindness? You know, with this particular person that I had got into the big fight with, she stopped talking to me and I'm like, well, yeah, you know, at first I was hurt and upset because we had just gotten to be friends. And, you know, she was my maid of honor in my wedding and we were really close, and then the situation happened. And suddenly I'm the worst monster in the world, you know? And like she stopped talking even though we live in the same house. Like it was that bad. We live in the same house, but okay, we don't live in the same house. She is a guest in the house that is looking for a place to stay. But because of this, she started treating me like crap. She stopped talking to me, like to the point where, like, if I walked into a room and she was having a conversation with somebody else, she would stop talking mid-sentence and leave the room. It got to that point for her. And it was making me mad. And me and my new husband, we got into a big fight about it. Because she is his family, right? And since I married into it, she's my in-law family. And I don't have a lot of, well, okay. Growing up, I had my grandma was pretty much my only extended family. Oh, excuse me. My grandma was pretty much my only extended family. So I don't know how to deal with nieces and nephews and cousins and anything like that because I didn't have any, you know? So when she started causing all of these problems, or when we got into the fight, and then it was a bad situation, and then she kept escalating it and making it worse. I wasn't seeing her as family that the relationship needed to be repaired and I needed to have some kind of understanding for, because she was family and she was going to be in my life forever now. You know, I was seeing her as someone who was making a bad situation worse for no reason, because she didn't want to admit that she was wrong. And I mean, I could have handled the situation differently, and I admitted that. I did. I'm a grown up, okay? I'm acting like a grown up. I did admit that I could have handled this situation better. And I apologized for the argument that we had, and I apologized for what I said, because I realized in that moment that I was emotional, that I had said things that were not appropriate. So I apologized. And when I did that, I thought that the situation had been resolved, because the situation may have revolved more around my son than anything, but I'm a mama bear. I'm sorry. As soon as he was threatened, I flew off the handle. I went into protect my baby mode. And I said things in the moment that I regretted because they didn't need to be said. And I apologized for it. And I thought that that had fixed it. But apparently, I was wrong. Because maybe. Okay, so my son, he has ADHD, authoritative defiance disorder, and a couple other things that they think he has that he's too young to be tested for. So not only is he 6, he is a boy. He has other mental issues. And because of those mental issues, especially the authoritative disobedience disorder, if you tell him not to do something, he's going to do it. Regardless how dangerous the situation can become. Because you told him not to, basically. 820. So I apologized, and things like that. But then I told my son, let the situation drop. We don't want to make it worse. The situation had been resolved to the best of the ability that we at that time could resolve the situation. So not 3 days later, he does something that puts him back in the same situation that started the whole problem to begin with. And she goes off on him because he did it. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to escalate the situation more than the situation is escalated. It is a bad situation. I'll talk to Jaden about it. Tell him he needs to understand in no uncertain terms that this cannot be done, right? But that's not good enough for her. She escalates the situation. She tries to find, okay, so I'm going to tell you the whole story, okay? So, what happened was, my son was playing with balloons. And the situation involves him getting bitten by a dog. He was playing with balloons. The dog was getting excited. So anyway, the dog was getting excited, and I told Jaden that he needed to calm down. So he started calming down and stuff, and he wasn't like whacking the balloon and playing like keep away with the balloon or anything anymore. So I was like, okay, this situation is handled for a minute. So I'm gonna go to the bathroom. So I go into the bathroom, and I start going to the bathroom, and within 5 seconds of me going into the bathroom, I hear the dog growl, Jaden start crying, and my friend's daughter, or the niece's daughter, screaming, Jaden got bit by the dog, Jaden got bit by the dog. So I flew off the toilet. I wasn't done peeing or anything. Run out into the hallway, and Jaden's wailing and holding his hip. And the niece is scolding Jaden. And I come out, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? And the niece's daughter is like, the dog bit Jaden, the dog bit Jaden. And I'm like, and she's scolding him. I told you to stay away from his mouth. I told you to stay away from his mouth. And I'm like, and I'm getting mad because she's like, I told you to stay away from his mouth. And having had experience myself being bitten by animals. It is impossible. Sorry, my husband came in. He needed me for a couple minutes. So I'm not exactly sure where I am in the story, but I think I was talking about when I was little. When I was little, I was attacked by dogs. The first time I was attacked by a dog, I was attacked by my aunt's dog. I mean, he didn't really like me. Every time I went over there, he would nip at me, and she would put him outside. But she was like, "Oh, he's a good dog. He'll never go past nipping. He's just being defensive and stuff." And being little and not knowing any better, I was like, "Okay." But I loved going over there. And then one day, I went over there, and she put him out before I came over. And she went out into the backyard to get something, and he snuck in. I don't know how he got in, but he got in, and I was naive, and I was like, "Oh, hey, doggy," and I went to pet him, and he lunged at me and tore up my legs. And he basically mauled me. He was a little, I think, what is it? A bulldog. He was a bulldog. So, he did some pretty significant damage. And my mom took me to the ER. They stitched me up, and they had to put the dog down because, he attacked me, like mauled me. And I was timid around dogs, but I didn't develop a fear of dogs. Because he was a good dog. He was having a bad day. He was old. I was told it would never happen again. So a couple years later, I had pretty much gotten over being afraid of dogs. We're going to do F. So F is 995. So I had pretty much gotten over being afraid of dogs. And then one day, I was riding my bike to a friend's house, and there were 2 pit bulls, just wandering around. And I was like, okay, it wasn't uncommon to see dogs running around my neighborhood. So I didn't think anything of it. They stopped in front of me, so I stopped, and I was like, "Hey, doggies," I didn't want to, they ran in front of me too quick for me to go around them or whatever. So I stopped, and I was like, "Hey, doggies," and I stupidly went to try and attack them, and both of them attacked me. And they each one grabbed a leg, pulled me off my bike, and were both shaking their heads, and I was a rag doll in their jaws. Luckily, the owner of the dogs came out and got them off of me and took me home. And again, my mom took me to the ER, and they had pulled the skin away from and a chunk of my muscle away from the bone, so you could see the bone. It was a very significant, my thighs and the lower part of my butt were really screwed up. So my thighs and right calf are covered in scars because of these dog attacks. And since then, I have been afraid of dogs. It's not a phobia. I'm not irrationally afraid of dogs. I have a healthy respect for dogs, because at the time it couldn't be a phobia because I had my own dogs, and I couldn't. At first, I freaked out whenever they came near me, but then I realized that they weren't trying to attack me, they were trying to comfort me. So it's not a phobia of dogs. I have a very healthy respect for dogs. And but if the dog turns aggressive, then I have then it turns into something completely different. Like, I won't freak out if I see a dog on the street. I'll give the animal a wide berth. Like, when I have to take my animals to the vets, if there are dogs in the office, I won't immediately freak out and leave, because, like, spiders and snakes and things and bugs, dogs are a part of life. They're potentially everywhere, you know? So there's no way to escape them unless you stay at home. And that's not who I am. So anyway, so I developed a fear of dogs. A fear of aggressive dogs. Let's put it that way. Because, like, when I walk into a house, I'm nervous around dogs that I don't know. But, like, if I know that they're not going to... It'll take me a while to warm up to them, but after a while, I will know. I'll still be a little nervous, but I won't, like, spaz out and freak. About dogs. So anyway, I'm sorry, I'm not a very good storyteller. I get off track a lot. Or I don't stay in order. So anyway, back to this point. So I run, and okay, so the reason she is telling Jaden, if you remember, she's scolding him. I told you to stay away from his mouth. I told you to stay away from his mouth. Is because that the dog had nipped at Jaden before. And it was just when him and the little girl were playing and he wanted to play too. And Jaden can be a little aggressive. So the dog would, like, snip at him to tell him to stop. And I was like, I understand what is happening, but, if the time before he actually got bit, it was a little more than a snip. It was more aggressive than defensive. So I told him, I was like, if it happens again, there's going to be a problem. Because at this point, I'm scared. I'm not only scared for myself, I'm scared for everybody in the household. Because if a dog gets to the biting stage, because once the dog gets to that aggressive stage, that dog's always going to be aggressive towards a specific person. And I told them, if it happened again, that there was going to be a problem. At this point, there had been no blood drawn, no marks, just scaring Jaden, basically. And I told them, because I don't tolerate biting dogs because of my past experience with dogs. You can say a dog is a good dog as much as you want to. That doesn't mean the dog is not going to bite. So anyway, so the dog bites Jaden, and she's saying, you know, I told you to stay away from his mouth. This is your fault. And as soon as I make sure Jaden, sorry, Jaden is all right, and she's still going off about how it's Jaden's fault and that he should have known better and this, that, and the other, I go off on her. I'm like, don't make this Jaden's fault. I told you that it was going to happen, and you blew me off. And it happened just like I said it would. You know, because the dog had, okay, it's a big dog. And my son is maybe 4 feet, if that. And the dog is just about chest height, or, chest height to him. And I can tell you from past experience, it doesn't matter if you're at the butt end of the dog. If that dog wants to get you, it will whip around quicker than snot and get you. There is no staying away from the mouth. You know? And I went off on her. I told her that the dog needed... I was getting ready to leave to go to the store. And I told her that it wasn't Jaden's fault. That I didn't care what she thought. She needed to knock it off. And the dog had better be gone before I got home. And she started to argue with me, and I stopped her cold. I was like, I don't give a crap what you think. Your dog bit my son. I told you it would happen. I told you that the last time that he had snipped at him, if it happened again, there would be a problem, and this is the result. This is a problem. And she's like, but he's a good dog, he's a good dog. And I was like, I don't give a crap if you think your dog is a good dog or not. Your dog bit my son. Get that dog out of this house now. And I was like, I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to take my son with me. And if that dog is here when I get home from the store, I will call the police and have that dog put down. At this point, you don't need to have him put down. You just need to get him out of this house. I don't care where you put him. And I left. I took Jaden and my husband, and we left. And I was pissed. I was so mad. I was venting to high heaven and creation, and my husband, he was trying to calm me down, but it sounded like he was defending the dog, and I was getting mad and upset that he was taking the dog's side in the situation. And I was like, if you don't have a fear for dogs, you will never understand my point of view on this subject. Yes, he had, because he kept telling me when he was little he was bit by dogs, and it was his own stupidity that caused the dog to bite him. And at that point in time, I didn't care. You know, I had been bitten by a number of dogs, and because of it, I developed a fear of dogs. And if you don't have a fear of dogs, you will never understand the fear. That's like if you don't have a fear of snakes, you'll never understand why people are afraid of snakes. They're more likely to be afraid of you than you are of them, and they, unless provoked, they won't attack you, just like spiders. And if you don't have a fear of a certain thing, you will never understand the reaction to those things. And finally, after like 3 hours ranting and raging and fighting and going off and, running my errands and being mad and everything, I calmed down a little bit. Or I calmed down. And, with obviously my husband's help, I calmed down, and he asked me if I still wanted the dog out of the house. And I said, yes. And if they can't find a place to put him and they don't want to put him down, the dog has to be muzzled and or kenneled at all times. And no exception. I don't care. Do not care. And so he's like, okay, this is something that we can do. I'm sure that's an accommodation that they will be happy to make. So he calls them and says, okay, she's calmed down. She says if you, instead of getting the dog out of the house, it needs to be muzzled or kenneled at all times. Obviously with exceptions, he can go out into the yard and not be able to get into the house or the patio room where I go and sit a lot without the muzzle. I'm afraid of dogs. I'm not evil. Okay? So they said, yes, that's a good accommodation, or it's a good compromise. And the muzzle I was thinking, and the muzzle that I went and bought for them, was a full mask muzzle, where it's like a cage that goes around the dog's jowls. They can still drink in it. They can still pant in it. The only thing they can't do is eat. And they most definitely cannot bite. So, but they went to the store and bought one of those muzzles that groomers use, that the front is open, it just prevents them from opening their mouth as wide. It's like a mesh. It's like a mesh tube that you put on the dog, and it works the same, but they still have the potential to bite. I wasn't happy about it. I put up a fuss about it, but I lost that argument. Because they said that he wouldn't be able to drink in the one that I got. He wouldn't be able to eat, obviously, in the muzzle that I got him. So he is kenneled and muzzled, I'd say 80% of the time. The rest of the time he is in the yard without the muzzle on. But every time I leave the house, they take the muzzle on. They take the muzzle off and let him wander around. And so I am scared every time I come into the house, whether the dog is going to be muzzled or not. And there have been a number of times so far that he has not been muzzled when I came into the house. And my fight or flight instinct usually steers towards fight more than flight. So I stand in, because they only do it when both Jaden and I leave. So I stand, because most of the time I already have the door closed and am a bit into the house before the dog comes up to me without the muzzle on, and it is too late to turn around and go back to the door. So what I do is I plant my feet, push Jaden behind me, and I wait. The only thing I could do if he decided he wanted to attack me is lift Jaden up out of harm's way and try my darndest to keep him off of him and get him off of me until somebody else can come and help. And at this point, regardless if that will ever happen, that will be my reaction to that dog unmuzzled. Even muzzled, I am terrified that he can still bite me. I don't go near him anymore. I don't pet him anymore. I don't give him scrap food anymore. And I mean, again, I'm not a monster. You know, I set it aside and give it to the niece and say, here, this is for the dog, but I will not give it to him myself. Even just throwing it to him to attract his attention to me gives me an adrenaline rush, like that jolt of fear. And they don't understand that reaction, the reaction that I'm having towards their dog, muzzled or not. So anyway, back to the original point of this story. So the main conflict is between Jaden and the niece, right? Because I was protecting Jaden from the dog and she didn't like that. So, and Jaden is the type of kid, because of all the stuff that I told you at the beginning, if you tell him not to do something, he'll do it just because you told him not to. So anyway, because I had started to, I was halfway being nice to the dog, but I wasn't going near him and anything. Okay, so we're going to be doing G. So there's a couple G's in here, not many. So anyway, he's the type of kid that you tell him not to do something, he's going to do it because you told him not to do it. So I'm telling him, you need to stay away from the dog because I don't want to cause that kind of problem that if, despite the muzzle, Jaden gets bit again, there is no compromise and that dog is being put down. And so I told him, you need to stay away from the dog because we don't want the dog to bite you again. Because he's going to go away forever. He's going to die if he bites you again. And he doesn't quite understand the concept of death. Yes, we've had animals die in the past, but they have all been like died of old age, or um, their health was so bad that it was more humane to put them down to let them suffer until they, died a horrible, tragic death. So he knows that animals, you know, go and don't come back. So he knows, but he doesn't quite understand that it can be a punishment for bad dogs too. So he's thinking, even though we've told him many times, I'm just putting an at symbol right there, this one here, 797. So he doesn't quite understand that, it's a bad thing to do this as a punishment. It's a bad thing to do this. So we're telling him not to do it because this is going to happen, and he's not quite getting it. So him being him, he keeps doing it. He keeps messing with the dog, not intentionally trying to get him to bite him, but doing things that irritate the dog. Mainly because he thinks it's funny. I don't know why he thinks it's funny, but he does. He thinks it's funny to get people mad at him, basically. And that's or he thinks it's funny to defy authority right in their face, basically. And he's got a couple problems. So, not too long after the dog gets muzzled, gets put in a muzzle, Jaden's messing with him and irritating him, and the dog starts growling at him. And the niece gets mad. Really, really, really mad. Understandably mad. Because she doesn't want her dog to die. I think that's her only reason for getting mad. I don't think that she doesn't want Jaden to be hurt. I don't think she doesn't want Jaden to be hurt or anything. I think she just doesn't want the dog to bite Jaden so that the dog gets put down. I don't think Jaden's is any kind of anything in her mind. Her mind is if her dog bites my son, the dog is going to die. It has nothing to do with the fact that if the dog bites my son might be hurt. It has nothing to do with that. And everything to do with if the dog bites my son, the dog's going to die. That's it. And my thinking is, if the dog bites my son's going to get hurt. And I understand, not really. I can't say that I understand her point of view because I don't. I really, truly, honestly do not. Yes, animals are part of the family. Yes, they can do a great many things for your mindset, your health, lots of things. There are lots of things. And yes, I do believe that pets are part of the family. But just like any other part of the family, if one member of the family seriously injured or maims another part of the family, Why would you pick the maiming person's side over the person that was maimed? Regardless if it's human, dog, cat, goat, bear, monkey, whatever. If there is an aggressor and there is a victim, why would you take the aggressor's side? And I can hear people now being like, well, what if the victim provoked the aggressor, blah, blah, blah. That's like, that would be like the girls not being able to wear specific kind of clothes because males find it provocative. Why would you? Is it truly the woman's fault for being raped because she dressed the way she did? No, absolutely not. But that is not a subject I want to get into. It is just a comparison. It might be a bad comparison, but it's a comparison. And anyway, so he does something to agitate the dog, and the dog growls at him. Oh, he's playing with my dog, because I have the runt of the litter German Shepherd. She's like half the size of a regular German Shepherd. Like I said, I don't have a phobia of dogs. I have a healthy respect for dogs. So he is playing with our dog Piper. You've seen her in a couple of videos. I will get a picture and insert it somewhere along in here. So anyway, he's playing with her. The dog wants to come over and find out what's going on. And he pushed her a little bit, and she she got excited and turned and slammed smack into the dog. So he growls. Jaden screams, said, he's gonna bite, and runs away. And this is what she told me. That is exactly what happened. And it pissed her off, or it made her mad that he had that reaction to the dog growling. Her words, those are her words, her description of what happened. And she got mad that he had that reaction to the dog growling. So she came and told my husband that we needed to punish him for having that kind of reaction towards her dog. We needed to punish Jaden for having that kind of reaction towards her dog because it made her upset. And he said, okay, I'll talk to him. And that made me mad. Because the dog is in the house. The dog bit my son. Of course he is going to have that reaction if there is any kind of aggression in his area. Especially from the dog. So at this point, me and her are still on talking terms. Right? Or up until this point, we're still on talking terms. And when she told me what happened, and I was like, okay, I'll take care of it. And I went in there and I told him, you need to not do this, that, and the other. And so I was like, you need to just leave the dog alone. Leave the dog alone. It's as simple as that. Don't go near him. Don't play with him. Just leave the dog alone. And he says, okay. So, like, ooh, that was a big old thunderclap. Let me turn this off, save this, and I'll start up again. Alright, so I just saved up until this point, just in case the power goes out at this point. So anyway, she's mad because he's having this reaction towards her dog. So, he leaves the dog alone, but again, because he likes to see he likes to get a rise out of people, like make them mad. So immediately, as soon as he gets out of trouble, he goes and talks to the aunt or the niece that, saying, the dog has a muzzle on so that he won't bite me, even though he may growl at me. And I don't like your dog anymore. And she flies off the handle, right? And instead of coming to me and telling me what he had said so that we can work it out, she goes to my husband and she flat out yells at him about Jaden saying this, that, and the other about the dog, biting him, and she doesn't want him saying anything about the dog, and he needs to stop talking about the dog, and he can't have any kind of reaction or interaction with the dog. And my husband turns to Jaden and says, Jaden, you need to leave. You can't talk about the dog. You can't interact with the dog. You can't be around the dog. Basically putting all kinds of restrictions on Jaden for the dog. And I came in as she was leaving, and she like shoulder checked me, and I was like, excuse you, because I had like shifted in the hallway so that she would have plenty of room to go by without us like brushing each other. But she flat out shoulder checked me, and I was like, excuse you, and she just kept on going, and I was like, whatever. And I come in, and my husband's talking to Jaden, and saying that that he needs to stop talking about him, he needs to stop interacting with him, and I'm like, what is going on? So he told me what had happened, and I was like, and I got mad. When I get mad, especially when I'm passionate about something, like this particular instance, if you can't tell, I go from 0 to 5 million in the blink of an eye, in a heartbeat. So I am instantly irate, right? So I start yelling at my husband because he asked me not to say anything to her, to not cause waves, because again, 0 to 5 million in the blink of an eye. I'm just shifting my position in my chair. So I blow up at my husband, and I'm like, he lives here. How in God's green earth is he going to not interact with the dog, not have any kind of contact with the dog, not talk about the dog? He lives here. He is allowed to talk about the dog. He is allowed to do, you know, it is insane to put these kind of restrictions on a 6-year-old. You know? Especially a hyperactive 6-year-old, where you're basically wanting to imprison him so that the dog has the run of the house because she didn't like the way he was talking about him. And she flew off the handle, overreacted to some stupid thing, and I flew off the handle and reacted to her reaction. And I said my piece and I left. I had been planning to go to my mom's house anyway, so. But, like, I walked away from the argument. I was like, you need to fix this. You need to fix this now, or when I get back, I will fix it. And I left. So, poorly handled on my part. I apologized. Well, I eventually apologized for the way I reacted and handled the situation. But anyway, so I go to my mom's house and I'm broiling. I'm so mad that I was seriously contemplating leaving the house. Like, getting an apartment around the corner, and me and Jaden would leave the house so that, because God knows they're not leaving, you know, and nobody but me is afraid of this dog, even though he has hurt my father-in-law, he has hurt my mother-in-law, and he has viciously slobbered all over my husband's arm. And, like, shown serious aggression towards me and everybody else in the household. But I'm the one that is the problem. Me and Jaden are the ones that are the problem. And I was like, screw it. If you guys want to have them in the house with that dog that is very capable of hurting and biting and maiming, and not only capable, but has the capacity, like the mindset to, you are more than welcome. More than welcome. I will remove myself from this situation. They don't want to solve the problem. They want to continue to have this problem. They are more than willing to keep the problem. I will remove myself from the situation. So, when I get home from my mom's house, my husband and I get into this really loud, our very first ever argument about not only the dog, her reaction to what Jaden said, and then me leaving mid-fight, which, again, I apologize for later. We got into the loudest, meanest, angriest fight we had ever gotten into, to the point where everybody in the house could hear it, about her overreaction and then my overreaction to her reaction, my reaction to her overreaction. And then we got into a fight about me leaving, and we got into it, and then he walked away from the argument. So then I was like, in my head, I was like, well, crap. You know, this is not resolving the situation. This is making it worse. And I'm exacerbating the situation with my own outrage at her reaction or her demand. So I calmed down, and it took like an hour for me to calm down and be willing to admit that, I was wrong, and be an adult, basically, about the situation. And so I went in and I was like, let's pretend for a second that I am a rational human being, that I know how to deal with people that aren't immediate family. Because I didn't have nieces and nephews, and I didn't have cousins and uncles and aunts and people besides my mom, my stepdad, my brother and sister. That, and then my grandma. That was it. That was all the family I had growing up. So I don't know how to deal with people. The way I was seeing her, and the reason I wasn't seeing her as family. I was seeing her as a person that was making a bad situation worse for no reason. Other than she wanted drama. She wanted to be dramatic for whatever reason. Or she wanted to split us up. One of the two. But so we finally worked it out, and he admitted that I was right, that he had picked the wrong side in that particular argument, that we couldn't do what she demanded because it wasn't fair to Jaden, because Jaden lives here, and they are here as a midway point. And he decided that he didn't want to be the middleman. He didn't want to be the peacemaker anymore. Because he didn't want to be yelled at from both sides. So he told me that if any problems arose because of it, that he would tell her to take it to me, because, honey, if you're watching this, I am sorry. But as much as he wants to say that he is on my side, he's not. As much as he wants to say that he will stand with me through anything thick and thin, when it comes to his family, he won't. Because they're his family. And this situation told me, as much as he wants to say and think and whatever that he is on my side of this particular argument, he's not. And the fact that I had to keep reminding him while we were arguing that because we are married, because we have Jaden, I am his family too. And the fact that I needed to keep reminding him of that tells me that that is the situation. And now I'm okay with it, and I was sort of okay with it then, but I'm more okay with it now. I understand. I mean, I don't understand because, again, I don't have extended family to deal with. Okay, if you're wondering, my husband is 11 years older than me. His brother was 8 or 10 years older than him. So, by the time, so his brother's kids, his niece, the one that I'm arguing with or having problems with right now, is like 2 years younger than I am. So that's where the math is, if you're wondering. So anyway, so we got into this big fight that the whole house could hear. And she got mad that he conceded the point to me, that basically I won the argument and that there would be no restrictions on Jaden, right? So she gets mad and she stops talking to me. And she calls her brother and, complains to him, and she's trying to find some place on her own. I didn't tell her to do it. Well, I mean, besides the first time, like immediately after it happened, I didn't tell her to find a new house for him. I didn't tell her that he needed to get out of the house. She decided on her own that she didn't like the way Jaden was treating she didn't like the way that we were reacting to the situation, that we were taking Jaden's side, and that there wouldn't be any kind of restrictions on him about the dog, besides as much as leave the damn dog alone. So she goes off all on her own and tries to find somebody outside the house to take the dog. And this is the most hilarious part of this story for me. So she calls her sister, and her sister is holding a grudge for me about something that she did to me, and I'm not apologizing to her because of what she did to me. Basically, that's another story. But she tells her what's going on, and she's like, I need to get the dog out of the house, otherwise that he's, this, that, and the other. Jaden's gonna provoke him into biting him, whatever. And her immediate answer is no, because her fiance doesn't like the dog because the dog growls at him. And I thought that was hilarious. And so that was an immediate no. So she calls her brother, and she tells him the situation, and he said, okay, they live with his wife's grandma. It's at her house. They are staying with her because they have nowhere to go. And it's not a bad thing. Everybody needs help up. That's why they are still in our house, because they can't afford to move out, and their family, you know? I mean, not to me anymore, but to everybody else in the house, they're family, so they're going to stay as long as they need to stay. It's the same with that situation. So he said, let me talk to my wife's grandma to see if the dog, see if we can take the dog. And I thought that was a bad idea, because she has an autistic kid, a kid just like Jaden, and a 2-year-old that is starting to look like she is autistic. They are, all three of them, identical to Jaden. They have the same tics and tendencies because he has autistic tendencies. So the grandma said, okay, let's do a trial. Bring the dog over. We can see how he reacts to the kids and this, that, and the other. He growled and snipped at the little girl. So they said no. Why? Because they were afraid that he was going to bite them. The kids. The 3 kids. So she was getting mad at everybody else, and at this point, because she's asked her people, and they all said no, so she's getting mad, but she's getting mad at me because her telling everybody what was happening so that she could get everybody all pissed at me. Nobody wanted to take the dog, because she had told them the reason that I didn't want the dog in the house is because the dog bites. And nobody wanted to take in a biting dog. I mean, even her brother called a couple of his army buddies that have like space for a big dog, when they asked why they needed to take the dog out or get the dog out of the house, and he said that the dog bites or bit my son, and they needed to, and he was not reacting well to it, that they needed to get the dog out of the house. Everybody said no, because why would anybody that wasn't way too trusting take in a dog that is confirmed a biter? So she gets mad and she stops talking to me because none of her people will take the dog in, because she blabbed her mouth trying to get everybody mad at me, and then none of them would take the dog because she blabbed her mouth and told them the reason why, or told them to try and get mad at me. And I thought that was the most hilarious thing. And she got mad at me, and she hasn't talked to me in, I'd say, a month, maybe. At this point, she hasn't talked to me in about a month. Maybe a word here and there, but not like a significant anything. Like a here or I was told to tell you type things. And, at first I was hurt, because we had gotten really close, and, and I did apologize for, wanting the dog out of the house, and I made compromises to ensure that there was a, if nothing else, the illusion of safety, so that I would have time to be able to to react, you know? And then, so, I'd let her go. I'd let our friendship go. I let the hope that someday she would forgive me for being afraid of her dog and wanting the dog out of the house, and then continuing to be afraid of the dog after the dog was muzzled or kenneled or whatever. Because the whole time she was mad at me and not talking to me, I was pretty much walking on eggshells, trying not to make her more upset at me and not be more mad at me, so that she would start talking to me again, and so that I would get my friend back. And that lasted 2 weeks, maybe. And I was talking to my therapist, and I was telling her what happened. Basically, the story I just told you, in pretty much the same order and sequence that I told you. And she told me, she asked me if it was worth it, walking on eggshells, being miserable, pining after a friend who doesn't want to be my friend anymore, or is acting like they don't want to be my friend anymore. And I was like, kind of right, do I want to continue to make myself miserable, hoping that this girl will, I don't know, get over herself and be my friend again? Is it worth having a friend like that whenever she does something wrong, or she does something that doesn't work out in her favor, she'll take it out on me and hold her friendship hostage? And I was like, huh, that kind of makes sense, because I apologized for wanting her to get the dog out of the house, for the way I talked to her, for yelling at her because she was blaming Jade. I did that for more my husband's sake than actually wanting to apologize to her. I forgot what I was gonna say. I feel dumb. Uh, is somebody that does that worth holding on to? Is it worth hurting myself so that she, right or wrong, can be validated? Basically, is what she said. And she's like, is it worth making yourself miserable hoping that she'll be your friend again? And it took me a little while to wrestle myself into it, but finally, the answer was no. She's not worth it. Uh, she's not worth the misery. She's not worth the heartache and the fighting with my husband. She's not worth giving up my son's protection because she doesn't like a decision that was made. Or my son, not his protection, my son's safety. Because she didn't like that the outcome wasn't in her favor. I'm gonna just grab one and put it on A here, if it will stop flinging all over the place. So I let her go. I let the friendship go. You know, she still lives here, so obviously I can't not have any contact with her anymore. And or she doesn't live here. She's still staying here. She's still staying here, so I can't not have contact with her, and I can't not be civil to her. You know, even if I wanted to not be civil to her, I couldn't because she's family, which is a really weird concept to me. And I, honest to God, have no idea why they're letting her do this. And I mean, thanks for watching. Thank you for letting me have a cathartic moment and vent a little bit. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Oh, here, wait, let me turn this off. Well, I mean, you can see it, but this is what it looks like so far. Let me turn this off. Turn off. There. There's what it looks like so far. We will be doing this much. We will be doing this section next. There we go. Dang it, I don't know why it does that. There. But you can see, you can start seeing the top of the skull here when it focuses again, this part right here. And there's the eyeball. And half the eyeball. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And please be nice in the comments if you decide to comment. But thank you for watching. Have a great day.